But you know, it was still football.
It's fun.
And it was free
It's
to
a
the
moment.
people.
I didn't hate this Sunday. Is that the
No,
collective wisdom here?
No, just like the big games didn't have
It was a meh.
electric moments. So, yeah, it was fine. It was good.
It checked a lot of boxes.
That it's almost over. That's good. Let's talk about it, Mark. We'll give you the floor real quick before we get into anything. The Cleveland Browns, what happened on Thursday. In my mentions were flooded with people saying, "Oh, I wanted to hear from Sessler." We'll give you the floor for 30 seconds right now to address the fiasco in Cleveland.
It was a fiasco. It's a very Cleveland-type win. You've finally beaten the Steelers for the first time in 5 years. Your quarterback played the cleanest game he's played to some degree during a messy season, and all anyone can talk about is a gigantic controversy that feels like it was spun from the dreamlands of Dave Damashek. I mean, who's been tweeting about it nonstop ever since. So, you know, it's talk about checking all the boxes. I could not. I've stayed off Twitter ever since. I don't need to interact about it. We all saw what it was, and you know, we won't be seeing Myles Garrett for many, many moons, many months in a row.
The biggest takeaway there was just Damashek's Twitter account is on your radar.
No,
you could have kept it.
I interact
kept it to,
happily
like,
with
7
Damashek
seconds.
a million times, but it's like I don't need to go on and on about it. You know,
It was a bummer, Mark. I'm sorry.
it was
hard to draw up a win that produced less enjoyment for you.
Yeah, it's reminded me of the Jets win on Monday night when I was essentially, and not because of Dan, but you're not allowed to celebrate that game either because the Jets had like 3 professional players on the field. It was just like this season is mostly a bummer.
And just to tie it all together, Myles Garrett broke Trevor Simeon's leg in that game as well. So
there is a beeline here.
It's all been building up to that. We'll get more into that perhaps during the week, but we have some football that occurred on Sunday to talk about, and I'm excited. You know, Greg, even when there's not major subplots and all-time games, you love all football games. So this is going to be a fun hour and 15, 20 minutes.
I'm going to have a great time.
All right, so why don't we start with the game that had probably the most excitement per minute. Let us head to the big bell bottom.
Garoppolo in the shotgun. Jeff Wilson Jr.'s in. He runs inside. He's got a 10, 5, touchdown! San Francisco!
Feels great, baby!
Wow!
0 blitz. They set the whole kitchen sink at Garoppolo, and who comes up with the big play? The touchdown machine. Jeff Wilson goes up over his head, collects the rock, and rolls into the end zone.
Excellent call by Greg Papa and Tim Ryan of the 49ers Radio Network. There's the energy. We got it from that team. Jimmy Garoppolo beat the blitz, found Jeff Wilson Jr., who gathered the pass, jetted into the end zone for the go-ahead touchdown with 31 ticks to play. The decisive score in the Niners' 36-26 win over the Cardinals. Wes, Kyler Murray and the Cards pushed the first-place Niners to the limit, but let's call it a gut check win for San Francisco.
Yeah, you want to play with fire, Scarecrow? Send your 0 blitz. Jimmy G hitting the game winner right there. What's crazy about this, Jimmy G throws for a career-high 424. 420 of those came in the final 3 quarters. He had 4 yards going into the second quarter, and he finished with 9.5 yards per attempt. He also threw 2 red zone interceptions. But before I knew who
Namath-esque this performance, just in terms of like the mistakes, the yardage, just a wild shootout performance.
I was ready to push back on the narrative that we have to have a State of the Union of every quarterback after every game when I wasn't sure if Jimmy G was going to emerge victorious out of this.
Now do it.
Well, a lot of the same things you're going to hear for Carson Wentz and other quarterbacks, what they're missing, what they don't have, why they're not playing well. You say the same thing for Jimmy G today. He doesn't have his leading rusher, Matt Breida was out. His left tackle, Joe Staley, was out. The best offensive player on the team, George Kittle, was out. Emmanuel Sanders, his number 1 receiver, is in and out of the game with rib injury and was clearly limited when he was on the field. All these things working against him. A defense that's been dominant gives up 3 touchdowns to the opposing quarterback. And Jimmy G steps up big, I thought. He had some problems throwing a little bit high early in the game, and his receivers still struggling to come down with it. But Deebo Samuel running after the catch, Tevin Coleman running after the catch, Kyle Juszczyk moving the chains. It was it was use all your weapons, and Kyle Shanahan, once again, just a brilliant play caller.
I would be concerned, though, that he didn't have a running game.
Well,
because that's 2 straight weeks, and, yeah, you're missing Breida, but you would
here's
expect –
a stat for you.
Yep.
Well, 181 yards per game in the first 7 weeks of the season and 74 yards per game in the last 3 weeks.
Right, and under 2 yards per carry. Maybe it's, you're playing a division rival 2 straight weeks. Seattle has a pretty good beat on what Shanahan wants to do, and now you place the Cardinals 2 times in 3 weeks. That's tricky. But I don't mind. This Cardinals 49ers, some teams, they just match up great. Have these teams play all the time. Only NFL Classic.
When if I'm a Cardinals fan, and there was reason for depression early on in the season, and our friend Jason Zumwalt, who is our resident Cardinals fan, has been up and down about it, but I would be enthused. And every season gets one of these teams at around this point in the year where, records aside, whatever's happened aside, toss it. They become the berserker, and they can cause major issues for other teams. They play the Rams twice, the Cardinals. They could knock the Rams out of the playoffs between now and the end of the year. And then one of those is Week 17. They play the Steelers and Browns. How about you knock them out, too? This is a berserker team that can cause damage in the AFC and NFC.
Although, if you're a Cardinals fan, you hate that Steve Wilkes call. You're up. He's trying to make a big play to win the game in regulation by, throwing a zero blitz at him with 30 seconds left when, at best, the 49ers, or at worst.
Vance Joseph, right?
Vance Joseph, rather. Sorry, not Steve Wilkes. And you're hoping that maybe Chase McLaughlin misses a kick, but instead you go all out and you have Chandler Jones covering a running back, and you know what Chandler Jones did? He got undressed on that play. The play was over within 1 second because Chandler Jones is on the ground because beats him, and that's tough. It's coaching.
To be fair, they didn't like a lot of Steve Wilkes calls either in recent history. So
you can't expect fans to be okay with a loss, but I look at this as sort of an unbiased person, and you found your quarterback. Anything to get you a better draft pick is fine by me.
It was sloppy. You had to take a quarterback 2 first rounds in a row, but the brain trust and ownership and the people in the Cardinals, with the Cardinals, I think they're feeling really good right now. You feel less good about the fact that you had a 16-0 lead in this game. That's tough. That's a tough loss because if you win this game, you're not necessarily in the playoff race. You would get to 4-6-1, the Cardinals, if they would have held on this game. But they would absolutely have the vibes would be like swarming in that building, the positive vibes. Not quite at that level, but still, it's a good spot for Arizona.
Pushed a 9-1 team to the brink twice.
Right.
I don't care. I get the record and I get specific little plays, but Cardinals fans who have been in the darkness for a number of years at this point, to Wes's point, should just feel excited about the future.
And it's a huge win for the 49ers because you lose this game to the Cardinals. That's a division loss. You've already lost to Seattle. You've got the Saints. You've got the Seahawks nipping at your
next
heels.
3 games.
Your schedule is so tough that you couldn't afford this loss.
Next 3 games. Well, let's go next 4 since Greg's favorite team is on here. Packers, Ravens, Saints, and then Falcons.
Falcons are no gimme.
Those 2 middle games are –
Talk about a
That's
berserker.
my favorite team.
Those 2 middle games are on the road. And we have seen now Jimmy G be dominant against the Cardinals twice. Let's see if he can do it against some of this competition coming up. Before we go, one last note. One of the all-time Vegas disasters scenarios unfolded on the final play of this game. And Al Michaels is the king of Sunday Night Football in dropping little nuggets about what's happening in the desert and how it affects what happened with the final score. Let's just hear Chris Myers give his best Al Michaels in a big spot.
Murray will throw to Fitzgerald, who will pitch it back at the 25. Scramble for it. Ball comes out of there. It's a rugby event. Is that 49ers? DJ Reed takes it into the end zone as time expires. Now, wait a minute. This could mean a lot to a certain amount of people.
This could mean a lot to a certain amount of people.
We all speak in code differently, and he's done it.
Grade the ref, Greg, since you're the expert.
Wait, grade what?
His ref.
I think it was solid. B.
It's number of people, not amount of people.
Okay, grammar-wise, take it down to B-. All right, let's move on.
Edelman motions into the backfield and then motions out to the right. Brady throws it to him. It's a lateral. Edelman's looking to throw. Under pressure. To the end zone for Dorsett. A strike for a Patriots touchdown.
Oh, razzle-dazzle, baby. You can see from up here. Perfect call by McDaniels. The execution of Brady just to take a slight step up to make sure Edelman off the return motion is wide enough and behind him. He quickly gets him the ball, and Edelman throws a dart to Dorsett, dragging left to right.
Bob Sochi and Scott Zolak. I got a feeling your whole family's going down. Zolak, the Patriots Radio Network, with the call. Oh, those tricky New England Patriots. Julian Edelman connects with Philip Dorsett. The go-ahead score with 10:49 to play. And the slug-like Eagles offense slugged its way to 0 points in the final 42 minutes of game time. 17-10, Patriots win. Greg, Tom Brady, and I mean no disrespect, was Blaine Gabbert level dangerous in this one. But the Carson Wentz-led Eagles attack appears completely broken right now.
They had a tough matchup. It was windy, as Tony Romo pointed out a million times in the game. But maybe it was worth pointing out because this is one of the worst performances you'll see out of Tom Brady and Carson Wentz. I was coming into this game hoping that you're going to learn something about these two teams coming out of the bye, how they're going to fix some of their problems, what they really are looking at with their strengths. But it was really more of the same for both teams. I mean, a million people are going to make the joke, hey, the best spiral of the day was from Edelman.
Oh!
You know? I mean, it was. I mean, that was a bullet.
Factual also.
A million people?
Dorsett's gonna, 1 million people. Dorsett was concussed on that play. There was a ton of injuries. You know, in Wentz's defense, Alshon Jeffrey didn't play in this game. They lost Lane Johnson after the third drive, which went, about 90 yards. And they didn't have a good drive basically the rest of the entire game. Jason Peters, their left tackle, went out with what looked like could be a serious injury very late in the game. And the Patriots defense was probably the group I've learned the most about, just because they haven't played many even halfway decent offenses, and to see them have a truly dominant performance against a good offensive line and the Eagles was encouraging. But you didn't feel any better about the Patriots offense after this game.
It makes me think, and you guys seem to think that my happiness lives or dies on the Patriots winning or losing in November.
Well, during
not entirely, but
during the game, you were getting juiced. You with 10 minutes left, you're like, this game is over.
And I was right.
Riding the
vibe in the room is affected.
I will always be rooting for the Patriots to lose, but at the same time, I watch this game and I continue now to watch this team as the schedule is tightened up a little bit, and these will be famous last words, but it just feels like after what we saw with the Ravens, that the Patriots, they will handle teams like the Eagles. They will beat up on all the bad teams just because they have Tom Brady and the best coach ever. But I would be, if I was a Patriots fan, I'd be a little wet in the underpants with a fear of the new guard, like a Lamar Jackson and even Patrick Mahomes and maybe even a wild card team in this conference. I don't think the Patriots, when I watch them, I don't think they scare anybody.
Right. Well, I've been saying that since week 2. That it's
but
not
you say that every year.
It's not a great offense. I also don't think this part of the season is huge for them other than stacking wins. I just think they had this 5-game stretch. As a fan, I went into it thinking you got to get 3 out of those 5. You start at Baltimore, at Pittsburgh. You're 1-1 right now if you want to get a bye. Now, you'd love to get the 1 seed if you're the Patriots, but the big thing is getting the bye. And so this is a big road win, and the defense is coming together. I think Isaiah Wynn replacing the worst left tackle, or one of the worst left tackles in football.
Is coming back next
Marshall Newhouse at least gives you some hope.
Well, there were still plenty of plays where Tom Brady had guys in his face. I mean, there was a lot of pressure today.
Faced a ton of pressure the whole game.
I thought so too. And they said at one point he had 14 incompletions.
Get that pressure up the middle, and you will make Tom Brady uncomfortable.
Except it's true in this game because
it's always true.
They were creaky.
True of every quarterback ever.
They had 18 yards. You have said, Greg, that their line is an issue and that running the ball consistently is an issue. And today, that absolutely was the case. I think they just faced an Eagles offense that I think I fell asleep at my desk 3 or 4 times waiting for that offense to come. And I don't want to referendum every quarterback either, but there were a couple of chances for Carson Wentz to write a completely different story along with the rest of the
can't blame his receivers for some of those throws on the final drive.
No, I mean, the wide receivers are no treat in this game either with Alshon Jeffrey out.
I do wonder if the wind had the Brady and Wentz just throwing different types of passes than they usually do, because they both threw 5 to 6 low scud missile skidders that just looked Bortles-like, as you mentioned.
Aguilar,
you said Gabbard.
Yeah. Well, he was Gabbard zone at 4.6 yards.
Well, so was Wentz. He's
Wentz
at 5.
Yeah, 5.4.
Just pick a Jaguars quarterback and compare him to.
Yeah, but Nelson Aguilar had a chance to come down with that ball, and listen, you could say he should have had it, but that's not Nelson Aguilar's game, making great catches, contested catches.
That would have been an insane catch.
So while it was in some ways very close to
it was a perfect ball, though, and if he tracked it well from the beginning, maybe it wouldn't have looked.
I just mean where he was at the end, where he's like forming a reverse C with his body. That's I've tried that. That's not easy.
Have you? There's such a need to just remake this offensive playmaker group around Wentz. I like the young running back Sanders, but I think and Ertz, of course, is one of the best tight ends. But even with Alshon Jeffrey there, is there somebody on this team that scares you, like a playmaker?
They need speed, right?
They need speed.
They're slow.
They just need to kind of reboot the machine a little bit here.
Ertz, but today he's still.
Here's my favorite stat, because every time I looked up, it was either 3rd and 10 and a pass going to Jordan Matthews, who had 1 catch for 6 yards on 6 targets. I mean, they have a talent deficiency, and it's not excusing or absolving Wentz, who's not playing very well this year. He's been very on and off, but they need help. They need reinforcements.
I think if you're the Patriots, though, style points, they really just don't matter. Like this November stuff, if you're just playing for Super Bowls, you want to have everyone healthy. They're getting a little healthier. They brought back N'Keal Harry, their first-round pick, who did have a few catches today. What was it? Yeah, 3
for 18.
Yeah, not much. You lose Dorsett. For the most part, they're actually getting healthier. You get Matt Lacoste back. It's not going to be like. Here's the thing: they won.
You just do this.
Yes, for Matt Lacoste. Here's the thing:
the instant replay of Greg's reaction.
They've won. They won Super Bowls early on, and many teams have with weird days like today where their coaches do cook up like 1 or 2 key plays in the game that just ends up being enough. And I think Patriots fans just got to get used to that's what this
nobody's
team is.
Panicking. I'll panic when they're down by 40 points in the Super Bowl because 28-3 didn't get the job done. So
they host the Seahawks, the Eagles do next week. Dirt nap game, Mark?
Not in the NFC East, because they also after that have the Dolphins, the Giants twice, and the Redskins. So a bad team can make a late surge.
They have a nice schedule.
All right, let us move on.
2nd down and 11. Jackson will throw out of the shotgun. He's got Ingram wide open. Far side 20, 15, 10, 5, and he's in. Touchdown Ravens. A blown coverage for sure by the Texans. Lamar Jackson saw Mark Ingram wide open on the flat, and when Ingram got the ball, he knew he had a touchdown.
Jerry Sandusky, WBAL with the call. Lamar Jackson, 4 more touchdown passes. He added 86 yards on the ground. An MVP-worthy showcase once again, helping the Ravens extend their winning streak to 6 games, a 41-7 win over the Texans. Mark, this was billed as a showdown between 2 of the great young quarterbacks in the league, in our league. But while Deshaun Watson mostly ran for his life, Lamar Jackson soared like a glorious Raven.
Yes, he did. I mean, I'd say one of the upsets of this show today is that this is our 3rd build game, because barring an absolute wipeout, which it would have been up at number 1. This was the clash that we were fired up about on Thursday and have waited for.
You called this. I was surprised at the confidence with which you were picking an absolute beatdown by the Ravens.
Well, I remember on my way home, I'm in Uber, I'm thinking, I'm going to get bit on that one. I came out all excited about the Ravens, and it's probably going to be one of these overtime things. But
by the way, when Wes said that, you should have just been like, yeah, I know.
I know, but that's not real, because I am kind of surprised
by
the
W, bro.
But the level of incompetence by the Texans in this game was somewhat stunning. And that's why when I look at the box score, if you just don't watch the game yet, no one on either side of the ball on offense stands out. No one had 250 yards. It wasn't a 400-yard performance like Jimmy G and some of the others. It was Matt Judon, it was Don Wink Martindale, and the Ravens defense that caused utter havoc right out of the gate for Deshaun Watson. And you could see right away, so this was a game where it wasn't one of these ones that was over in 5 minutes, but the tone was set when Deshaun Watson on the first possession, 2 minutes in, is doing one of his figure eights, multiple figure eights where he's going in and out of Ravens defenders. You think he's going to escape and whip the ball to DeAndre Hopkins 25 yards downfield. Instead, it is a strip sack. The Ravens go from there, and it really wasn't much later that the Ravens were up 21-0 on a beautiful catch and run by Mark Ingram, who was uncoverable at points in this game.
Your friend.
My friend, their tight ends, their running backs, everyone was doing it. This was basically putting the rest of the league on blast. I do believe at this point that the Super Bowl goes through Baltimore, not New England, and this is such a different-looking football team than anything else out there right now. And the Browns fan of me has to just shed all preconceived issues with the Ravens because they're the most fun team to watch, and they are dominant on another level right now.
My dog Mark with a C.
We've reached the point in the season where you can tell that the whole city is going crazy for this team because it's just that exciting to watch this team
One
play.
of the great NFL cities.
Yeah.
Everybody's having fun in and around the Ravens, even, and it extends to the post-game pressers. Mark Ingram, after another quality game, he does his thing, and then Lamar Jackson is on deck at the press conference podium, and this is how the running back set up the quarterback.
Now I would just like to introduce y'all to the man, the myth, the legend, the MVP front runner. If anybody else got to say something different about that, then come see me. I'm right here in Bmore outside the bank. If you got an issue with that, come see me. I'm about that. Big trust. Woo woo. Lamar Jackson in the flesh. Yes, sir. Big trust. I'm with you. New Era 8 apparel.
Click, shout out.
Hey, it's mad funny.
It's mad funny.
Yeah, he said it's mad funny. And I liked Lamar even tried to follow it up by introducing Matthew Judon with an X. He didn't have quite
the
the
one
same
thing,
seal.
because the reason, and if you have not watched the show, that we make fun of the fact that I went on this random off-season trip to obviously. I'm not
Say
telling,
make fun
I'm not
of?
telling.
We don't.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is. We point fun at it.
We don't make fun of it.
All right, well, whatever. We can deal with that later. Went to Italy and Germany on a USO mission, and Mark Ingram was along for the ride. And what I would say is that after dinner, as a group of us, and that like he would order an ice cream sundae, he would talk about the ice cream sundae the exact same way. The details, like he couldn't have been more excited about the chocolate sauce and stuff. So he's just that dude.
Can I just say, was Mark Ingram along for the ride, or were you along for the ride ultimately at the USO trip?
I think it would definitively is up in the air. I mean, you have to hear more about what happened on that trip.
Definitively up in the air.
It's not surprising that the Ravens ran all over them. What did they end up with? 263 yards. They are on pace to be the greatest running team in the history of the NFL.
Ever.
At least in terms of 16-game schedules. What is more surprising is their defense, and scary, I think, for the Patriots and Chiefs and the rest of the AFC. If their defense can win games on their own sometimes, and that they keep getting better since they picked up Marcus Peters, and they keep making changes. They benched Patrick Owasso, their middle linebacker today, who's really been struggling, and they're tweaking it, and it's all working, as you mentioned, Mark.
Mark, there was, and we're going to play the sound from Bill O'Brien in a moment. This is a blowout game, but he's furious about a pass interference that wasn't. Do you want to just set it up?
Yeah, thank you for, because that's the kind of thing where anytime I was writing or tweeting about Lamar Jackson, Texans fans are saying this game is a ref-manufactured nightmare. And I will say this: it was an opening possession pass where DeAndre Hopkins, if you watch the replay, I would say that there were 3 separate arguments for pass interference, to the point where they threw it to their ref analyst guy, and he said, yes, the issue is when you're trying to challenge this and it goes to New York, it seems to hit some sort of robotic stone wall where they're unwilling to overturn what this would have been a clear-cut example to overturn. And it did change the game, but it's not the only excuse.
Messy as hell. Let's hear from Bob on that.
I don't know, John. I have no idea. I got to watch the tape. I have no idea.
You know that early pass interference call?
I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what pass interference is anymore. No idea.
It's messed up, Wes. It's one and done. It's got to be, because this is like the prevalent takeaway on where we are right now.
It's perfectly understandable that a referee would miss a call in real time at real speed. It's inexcusable to slow a play down, show it frame by frame on your television to your audience, and then tell them they didn't see what they saw. I love the sport, but I don't love it when a legitimate sport forces me to view the proceedings through the prism of professional wrestling, which is how I view any time they go under the hood for replay.
Well said. All right. It is now time for Road to Victory, presented by the United States Marine Corps.
It's 3rd down and 7 at the Lions 17. Snap is back. They blitz, and he flips it out right. Elliott picks it off the ground. 20, 15, 10. Touch left. Dances in. That's a touchdown. And Elliott comes up doing his impression of the Prescott hip swivel warm-up dance. Wow. That was a desperation throw, and Elliott virtually made a one-hand catch to keep the ball off the turf.
Brett Sham. The Sham got... Turn up my ears.
I like it. Very Marine Corps-like.
The Sham God. Dak Prescott given ample time by his offensive line, and he rewarded their precision with 444 yards and 3 touchdowns, taking the Cowboys to a 35-27 win over the Detroit Lions. Greg, we know the Lions defense stinks. We know Matthew Stafford ain't playing ball right now with the fractures in his back. Why was this game as close as it was?
Because Amari Cooper isn't healthy, because the Cowboys defense continued, a very mediocre season. But I still think it shows how this Cowboys team is different. Because with Amari Cooper not playing a full complement of snaps, and the running game and Ezekiel Elliott not really doing that much, they have Michael Gallup to go off for 9 and 148 in this game. They have Randall Cobb to make a couple big plays, 4 for 115 and a touchdown. But Gallup especially in this game played like a number 1 receiver. I mean, he made plays in tight coverage. He ran great routes. He was doing it all. And in the past, you would have an injury or two, and the Cowboys would go kaput. And now you've got those two guys in a really balanced offense overall, and a better approach by Jason Garrett, who knew his defense was struggling, even against Jeff Driscoll, who played pretty well actually, and kept throwing the ball when they had a lead in the 4th quarter, and even threw the ball on 2nd down to go ice the game instead of running it 3 times and punting and trusting his defense. So I am hoping that it's Jason Garrett leaning into their passing attack, because that is what this team is all about.
One of the reasons I was so excited about this offense entering the season was because you could tell by the way Michael Gallup was playing in August and September, he was making the leap. And then he had a knee scope in September, came back and was not playing with confidence, started dropping balls, wasn't explosive. It looks like he's back now. And this still the best offense in the league by DVOA, I'm sure.
Right, and they lose Lyle Collins late in the game, and Cooper's not 100%. So you're still kind of waiting for them to be 100% healthy, but they're close.
I mean, to your point on Garrett, Jane Slater from NFL Network reported that he held a meeting with the team and basically took accountability. They didn't say what for, but we could put together some dots and what it might be about in terms of the offense.
Yeah, and I think it was him being conservative last week, because he was self-critical that he leaned on the run too much in that game. And I meant to mention when I talked about depth, Tony Pollard was huge in this game, 4 for 44 as a receiver, including a touchdown. But he made plays on his own. I mean, they have playmakers around Dak Prescott, who is also playing great.
It happens sometimes in the NFL with head coaches, even guys that have been established. There could be a come-to-Jesus type moment, or the light goes on, or for whatever reason. Maybe if you're a Cowboys fan, that's what you're hoping happens here, because they have been, since Ezekiel Elliott came to town, they're like, this is our best player, this is the engine of our offense, and we're going to go through him. Perhaps, Wes, though, it's better to have a more open mind about how you attack the opponent and just be more aggressive in general, which has been a negative hallmark, if that makes any sense, of the Garrett era.
Well, I think what you're saying is true, especially when Dak Prescott has overtaken Zeke Elliott as the engine driving this offense.
Perfect.
And Dak has just had a phenomenal year. There cannot be critics anymore of the way he's played.
Yeah, I had him I have to rank, the MVP candidates. I had him 5th going into this week. A lot of people thought that was
What do you guys just go back and forth with the
weird.
ranking of MVPs? It feels like it's every other week.
Oh, really? I have to now every week. It's part of
it's Greg's now.
It's part of the debrief, but
Okay.
he has to be that good because I would be concerned about the defense. It's not a good sign when Jeff Driscoll runs for 51 and a touch. He should run more, frankly. He passed on it a couple times. Bo Scarborough's running through your defense. They ran in the red zone. The Lions did pretty well. It was closer than it really should have been. But here's
we're worried about the Cowboys' defense.
Yeah, here's an unpopular opinion.
Go ahead.
If Jeff Driscoll's playing on Thanksgiving, I don't totally hate it. I want Stafford out there, but Driscoll's got a little something.
I would like to put it out there and stone me if you wish, people of Michigan. The ones that live by the lakes. But
it's a little harsh. But
maybe we flex out the Lions going forward. On Thanksgiving, tradition's great. We're not going to take away your game in that week, the Week 12 or Week 13 game or whatever. But we're just going to slide it to Sunday and then put in something marquee in that early game slot. Yay or nay?
That parade
Who's coming with me?
That's all they have left.
Yeah, the family tradition you've had for 35 years. Sorry.
35?
Whatever.
I mean, 35 decades.
I just mean
They've got
one particular.
I think what
grandparents who've celebrated this.
They basically added the third game as a permanent flex where you can wake up late or you can just get going early with the Thanksgiving party and maybe skip that.
How about a
game.
flex by the schedule makers? Like, this is our game. This is what we're going to do.
I hear you. I'm with you.
I can't back you on this one.
All right.
Lions fans have been through so much. This
That's
is all
true.
they have.
Can I be honest? I love it. I love I love the Lions. Even when they stink, it's a big part of the holiday. It's in Detroit. Everybody's having fun. But, sometimes you think Jeff Driscoll or maybe I could see Patrick Mahomes at noon on Thanksgiving. That would be nice.
Do I need to be a Lions fan? And it's not so much this year, but in countless years past, the team is 1-11, and we're about to go get waxed 45-10 on Thanksgiving. Maybe don't affect my holiday if I'm a Lions fan. Just another from the wilderness.
Why wouldn't you be honest the whole time, though, Dan? You said, well, okay, if I'm actually being honest.
Because I feel like I'm going to get some heat. I'm trying to couch it, but also make my statement.
Nice.
Drag a few floodlights into that stadium, please.
That was. You have a lighting issue there?
So many critiques.
Yes, their artificial turf looks gray-green. Like, that is not a color that occurs in nature.
I like the facility. It's got a nice field house quality to it.
More green, please. More light.
You hear that, people of Michigan?
Thank you.
And that was the Road to Victory, presented by the United States Marine Corps. And we move on.
Brissett on a counter, gives off to Marlon Mack, cuts up field, patient run, spins out of a tackle, still going, he's at the 10, he's at the 5, looking for the pylon, and he is in! Touchdown, Marlon Mack! The best run you'll see all year! The Colts are in! It's 7-6 with a 13-yard run from Marlon Mack!
Let's calm down on that one.
Matty Taylor with the call for the Colts Radio Network. And it may be the last time we see Mack for a while. I had to check in. He has a fractured hand. Left this game in the third quarter. Anyway, Marlon Mack and Jonathan Williams both went over 100 yards. Part of the Colts' best running day in 15 years. 33-13. A win over the Jaguars at Lucas Oil Stadium. The Colts piled up 262 yards on the ground. The Jags offense unable to get much going in Nick Foles' return to the starting lineup. It started great, actually. Their first possession, they go down the field. Foles 6 of 7. A great little pass over the middle to DJ Chark, who takes it to the house. And away we go. We're off and running. But then the game just switched. It just flipped, and Indy took over. And this has been an issue for the Jaguars, who are in very deep trouble now. This has been an issue for the Jaguars at multiple points this season, an issue stopping the run. And it's not even the worst game they had this season. Christian McCaffrey and the Panthers, I think, dropped a 268 bomb on him about 6 weeks ago. So they don't do a good job against the run. And they got into a situation where, we talk about the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott, who's running the offense. Well, Leonard Fournette is the guy that makes the Jags offense go. He only gets 5 carries in the first half of this game. And by the time they fall behind, you're not going to go back to him. So essentially you're playing a different style ball they usually play, and the game just slipped away. And to the Colts' credit, they get Jacoby Brissett back. He doesn't do much in this game, but he stays on the field. He stabilizes the offense. And this is an important win, and it sets up a huge game on Thursday night with the Colts traveling to Houston.
Who are the Jaguars going forward? The Nick Foles Jaguars.
I mean, they want to throw the ball deep. They want to get after the passer.
They don't have a backbone on defense, apparently.
But if you're Tom Coughlin probably sold to his owner, what type of team he wanted to have a few years ago. And I bet the words, we're going to run the ball, we're going to be tough, we're going to stop the run came out of his mouth. And then you play the Colts, and you have 29 yards rushing, and they rush for 264.
Well, I know Leonard Fournette's season-long stats look pretty good, but they go halves and quarters at a time without running the ball at all.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with the pairing of John DeFilippo and Nick Foles, which was not in place when Coughlin and crew hit the scene. Last year they were this run heavy, we're going to run at all costs, and it cost them.
Right, and Foles, who I was excited to see, tough opening spot for Foles Nation here. They're at 4-6. They're not done in the division, but you're down 2 games now with a couple division losses, and you're in pretty big trouble.
I do love the AFC South because it's very messy in a fun way because you got the Colts and Texans. As I said, they're playing on Thursday night. Great Thursday night game at 6-4. The Titans hanging around at 5-5, and then the Jaguars, who not feeling good about the Jags at this point, but even they're on the periphery. They're 2 games out and they're in last place. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of shifting and moving around in that division potential. I still like the Texans even after today. I kind of, my feeling, because I was with you, Mark, on it. Wes didn't acknowledge it, but I thought that the Texans were catching the Ravens at a really bad time.
Sorry, Dan.
No, it's fine. And that it was not going to be a good Sunday for them. But I also think, throw it out. It feels like, not to go back to the Texans, but it feels like with 3 weeks running, there's a playoff contender that just looks outrageously terrible. It was the Packers a couple weeks ago. Last week it was the Saints. This week it's the Texans. I'm trying not to put too much stock into that with the Texans and writing them off, but the division feels definitely a lot tighter now than it did before kickoff today.
Texans have a different ceiling than the Colts and the Jaguars, but the Texans have showed that floor, not today's floor, but a concerning floor more than once.
Right, and this Colts team can say, okay, that's fine, but Thursday Night Football, we can sweep the Texans. So that essentially would
driver's seat, baby.
That would essentially be a 2-game lead, and so you're right, that's a massive game. I also, while we were talking, got a message from the Ryan Pace Defenders Committee. It's a group that just and then they said to me,
loosely assembled.
Yeah,
what's their membership base?
It's pretty big. It's in Chicago. And
Ryan Pace
and they said,
you.
Yeah, they said, hey, can anyone mention that the Jaguars drafted Leonard Fournette? When they needed a quarterback, everyone's killing me. When I took Trubisky over Watson and Mahomes, they take Fournette and Blake Bortles as their quarterback.
Touche.
Yeah, they kind of blew that. In retrospect,
good job by the Pace Committee.
Pace Committee score a big dub.
I don't like that that's what Pace is doing during an actual Bears game that we're watching.
He's not part of the committee.
Well,
he's not. He's just a lot of fans.
I also want to say, Wes, since you met Lakeisha, your fashion sense has just gone through the roof, as we all know, famously. You say it's more an awakening on your part. Other people, outsiders and critics, say it's your wife that's stressing you and you don't deserve as much credit.
Would you like a true breakdown? Can I give you?
Let me finish my point, and then I want you to take the floor on this.
Okay.
But I just want everyone, when you rewatch this game, if you're not watching it on condensed, to check out T.Y. Hilton's gigantic black diamond necklace that he's wearing on the sideline for 4 quarters. It makes a Mr. T necklace look, frail and tiny by comparison. Wes, the floor is yours.
Well, let me. I've attempted to steer the narrative on this a little bit, as you all have. Let me go with complete candor here. It's harder to dress when you're overweight and you don't really care.
Okay.
But I dropped 75 pounds during cancer, and I came back, and clothes fit a little bit better.
The cheater's diet, I call it.
But the I would say having Lakeisha, just to hear a few words, no, I don't know about that, just during the week, and then after a while, you start putting a few things together just because you hear it, and then you feel confident enough to put your own clothing styles together.
Well, What does that have to do with the aggressive rips in your upper thigh jeans tonight? I mean,
that's how
you're showing some nice.
Can we stand up? Can we get the camera shot here?
Wow.
They're not really in the upper thigh. Well,
what a
peach.
Oh yeah, but look up. Oh yeah. Oh, was that Mark?
Oh yeah.
Oh, this one here.
Not current, but
you got holes all over the place.
Oh yeah.
Wes, can you just for camera one? Can you show them how high up it is on the thigh? Because it's aggressively high.
Camera one has never seen anything like this. I can promise you. Oh yeah.
This right here.
Right there. I mean, that's a little tease to the ladies.
Entertain yourselves with the vapors.
All right, let's move on.
Allen
That's why you have to watch the show and to listen,
Allen
folks.
pumps once, now looks right, fires a strike downfield, caught by John Brown at the 15 into the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Buffalo!
Oh.
John Brown, touchdown, Bills from 40 yards out. A great throw by Josh Allen.
That was a laser throw by Josh Allen up the sideline to John Brown, and that is exactly what Bills fans wanted to see.
Take that, Greg Rosenthal. John Murphy and Eric Wood with the call for the Bills Radio Network. Josh Allen ran for a score and tied a career high with 3 touchdown passes. Take that, Greg Rosenthal, including that 40-yard connection to Smokey Brown. The Bills romp 37-20 over the Dolphins, ending Miami's 2-game winning streak. That completes a sweep of the home and home for the Bills, who are in prime playoff position at 7-3 with 6 games to play. Mark, it was nice to see the Bills actually hammer a team, which is what they did here.
One thing that I specialize on, if you're from the United Kingdom and you've ever watched us on Sky Sports, is they have us on at the end of the first quarter of games. And I went on and defiantly announced that the big issue with the Bills is they cannot close drives. They're a field goal offense. There's a lot to be concerned about. And they're looking like a 6 seed that's about to get bounced out of January play. They go on minutes later to unleash the first of 4 long, many-played touchdown drives that dropped a bomb on a Dolphins team that I also oversold as one of the best coached teams in the league. So, sometimes things don't go right in the way that you view a contest.
Sometimes we shouldn't talk so much.
We should maybe just stay quiet, and I know some behind the glass would agree as well. But this Dolphins team, they hang around. They have that ability, but they were overpowered today by, I would say, I'm glad they used John Brown in that replay, because John Brown is not someone that's going to get a lot of talking points and press because he's just not a dominant player. But week after week for the Bills, 137 yards today, 9 receptions. He's been there for Josh Allen week after week. They went back to using Devin Singletary a bunch. I think that's an up and down thing. That I don't see him as someone that you can count on alone. They needed Frank Gore too. And the Dolphins offense, they ran into issues. I thought the Bills defense, which has some of their own concerns, gave Ryan Fitzpatrick a lot of issues up at the line. Ryan Fitzpatrick looked a little bit beguiled at times, and this played out in the second half the way you'd expect. The better team won. I don't think the Bills are a 37 points a game team by any stretch, but they flexed their muscles a little bit today.
Greg, I would imagine this will be a humbling experience on Game Pass.
It'll be good to see them put up some points. They had, yes, it was the Dolphins, but they needed a game where they scored points, where they had touchdown drives, and more importantly, where their pass rush showed up. I think, to me, that's been as concerning and their rush defense as anything going on with Josh Allen, because you thought this defense was going to be special, and at least everything I read and the stats certainly support that their pass rush, that they were getting after it. They need
7 sacks.
John Brown, who has been at times one of the best deep receivers in the NFL, on pace for 90 catches and 1,300 yards, playing with a quarterback who cannot complete a deep pass.
Maybe he'll get hot. Maybe Josh Allen get hot.
Maybe John Brown should have been the Eagles' target, not Deshaun Jackson.
Can we talk about Frank Gore?
Yeah. Oh,
it's
wow.
now
Keeps getting worse.
It's now been over a month since he's averaged over 2.5 yards per carry.
Well, in fairness, he only gets the ball seemingly in 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 situations, and he always gets
stacked
1
boxes.
Yard. It's kind of true.
That old trope.
It's true. It's true. Have you watched the last couple weeks?
Hey, you're allowed to break through. Drag a few.
He gets that 1. That's how you average 1 or 2 yards per carry. 3rd and 1.
They stack the box. That means there's no safety. You can just keep cruising.
Your defense system is weakening, Greg.
So many wrote off Frank Gore only 3.5 years too early.
Right, exactly. Frank Gore's playing a contributing role to a 7-3 football team in the year 2019. Give me a break.
The inconvenient oof, that I call him. No, I have respect for Frank.
Everybody's got respect for Frank.
I mean, he's going to Canton.
Is he?
He is. I think he will.
Sounds like a juicy off-season topic.
We'll get there in the offseason.
All right, then.
Let's move on.
This is for all the money. Allen, shotgun, snap. It's going to fade right. That's a push-off.
And the Minnesota Vikings have beaten the Denver Broncos as the Vikings flood the field. They head into the bye with positivity and their 8th victory of the season. They come all the way back on a sloppy Sunday from a 20-0 deficit, and they beat the Denver Broncos 27-23.
Paint the picture, Paul Allen with Pete Bursich. I think Bursich just went, that's a push-off. And Allen did all the heavy lifting there. Vikings Radio Network. The Vikings wiped away a 20-0 halftime deficit with touchdowns on each of their first 4 drives in the second half. Then held off the Broncos by forcing 3 straight incomplete passes in the end zone over the last 10 seconds. You heard the last one there. They preserve a 27-23 win. Wes, a comeback of this caliber is always going to be a team effort, but come on now. Kirk Cousins led the way, baby. Check that box.
Well, he's running out of dragons to slay here with last week beating a winning team on the road in prime time. And in this week, let's talk about the things that he accomplished in this game. They were down 20-0 at halftime. Teams trailing by 20 or more points at halftime were 0-99 over the last 5 seasons before that. The Vikings are the first team in 40 years to score on every second-half possession and win after trailing by 20 points at halftime.
Whoa.
They are doing some things, and this isn't a day where Dalvin Cook, all-pro candidate, stuffed. Could not go anywhere on the ground. Adam Thielen, out of the game, not playing. And Stephon Diggs, not a target officially in the first half. This all happened in the second half. And let's compliment Cortland Sutton. Remember the 1980s wrestling where you'd have, I guess it's still in wrestling now, the curtain jerker?
Sure.
He takes control
Barry
of the match.
Horowitz.
Give him 6 minutes to kind of work the guy around. And then he's going to lose. Cortland Sutton was giving forearm shivers, kicking him in the chest, little pile driver action, just taking care of the entire Viking secondary, specifically Xavier Rhodes. Cortland Sutton is a man among boys, and I would not have any problem with anybody putting him as the second All-Pro behind Michael Thomas.
Woo-wee.
Every week against good corners, he is making unbelievable catches. And the Broncos emptied out, this was the old kitchen sink game, empty out your bag of trick plays, your gadget plays, and they did in this game. And that's part of the reason why they got this lead, 20-0, and then they ran out of trick plays in the second half.
Think about this day for the Broncos franchise. It starts with a report from CBS that the locker room is a little bit down on the Vic Fangio experience, that his gruff demeanor has led to some general unhappiness behind the scenes. And then you have what could be kind of not season saving because the season's kind of gone already, but something that would really make you feel good going into Minnesota and shocking a very good Vikings team. And then for it to end with losing your 4th game of the season, essentially in the final seconds in the 4th quarter, it has just been that kind of year for the Broncos, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens with them going forward.
They have some players to build around. And Alexander Johnson, this guy that they put in their starting lineup at the end of September at linebacker and has transformed their defense, had another big game today. Shelby Harris had a big game for them in the first half. They have some good things going for them, but you're right. It's just a series of heartbreaking close losses.
I mean, no one loses a lead like the Broncos. But the crazy thing here was how little margin for error Cousins had. This was not a normal 20-point comeback or 2-touchdown comeback. Not only did they score every possession, they had touchdowns on all 4 possessions. And you figure, okay, well, the Broncos, offense let them back in it. Not really. The Broncos offense only had 4 drives. They had a 7-minute field goal drive. They had 2 other drives, and that included a missed field goal. They almost scored to win the game at the end. The Broncos actually possessed the ball for over 17 minutes in the second half. It was just the Vikings, every time they got the ball, they scored a touchdown as fast as they possibly could and put it back on them. That's pretty impressive.
You look at the Vic Fangio resume, it also includes a pretty disastrous second half against the Jaguars.
Yes, it does. A lot of disastrous second halves.
Right, yeah, this is really Yeah, 4 of them.
And I know Brandon Allen is probably, you're holding the spot here for John Elway to go draft another quarterback that's going to underwhelm us.
Drew Lock's going to play soon, I would have to imagine.
Drew Lock, I'm not sure what the overall
I don't know what's going on
the scope is there, but Brandon Allen's mobility, a couple games in a row, because he did it against Cleveland too, and did it today. He had a big third down scramble that bought them time. I know they lost the game, but it's not I'm not killing Joe Flacco
scrappy.
here. I think it gives another little element to their offense.
I agree. I think that he is a better fit for that offensive line than Joe Flacco was.
This game is almost like the microcosm of this entire Viking season in one game. They have the early struggles, and you had one moment where you could see Stephon Diggs was clearly upset on a play that Kirk Cousins had a free play, but instead of going down the field, he threw it to the fullback, which is like the most Kirk Cousins thing ever on a free play. Let's just get 2 yards. But then that squeaky wheel got the grease because Diggs had a long touchdown on one of their quick drives later in the game.
He also had a 34-yard play called back on a ticky-tack holding penalty. He could have had over 180 or 150 yards in this game.
Wes, you said that Mr. Cousins is running out of dragons to slay. I got one for you.
All right.
I have it written down. Win a playoff game before 32nd birthday.
That's fair.
He's got more to do to prove himself as a true franchise leading quarterback.
Go win this division, so you put yourself in a chance to go far in the playoffs.
I
love
think
that Cousins narrative.
He has played well enough to get everyone off his back, I think.
I agree with you on that.
To stop being like the Twitter go-to joke.
It does feel like people are off his back at least for now.
It's only one game.
Until he does
I hear you, but
on prime time.
Had they lost today, that would not have been the case at all.
Let us move on. You want to talk about a team that knows how to blow a
stands
game.
at the 31. Atlanta releases late on the Gunners. Pilardi right down the seam. Barner backtracks to the 20. Kenyon 25. Reroutes 30. 35. Barner 45, 50. Has a block on the perimeter. He's only got the punter to beat. Pilardi is cut down and Barner scores. Touchdown Kenyon Barner. And it is 77 yards.
How sweet must that taste to Kenyon Barner, who used to play here, and this is as pretty a return as you're ever going to see. Just a weaving, unbelievable return by Barner with a vision, got a few blocks, puts it in the end zone.
Oh, yeah, the Kenyon Barner revenge game. Wes Durham and David Archer with the call. I feel like we're not seeing as many punt returns for touchdowns.
No, that was one of the best, if not the best all year.
The Falcons are subtly soaring high above the mountains. Kenyon Barner returned a punt 78 yards. Well, if you sit next to Greg, you would feel that way too.
Yeah.
Okay, high above the mountains is illustrious, but
he returned that 78 yards. Just one of many highlights for the Falcons. Thank God this wasn't 28-3. We don't like that number in Atlanta. 29-3 win over the Panthers in Charlotte. Greg, makes sense of this for me.
I mean, you guys have been making fun of me enjoying a team, changing what everyone said about them, that they had given up on their coach, that they were unwatchable. Like, we all just kind of took them for jokes, and they've come out and they've beaten the hell out of two teams with winning records, the Saints and the Panthers, on the road in back-to-back weeks. And it starts because you got a professional quarterback. On the first third down of the entire game, Matt Ryan sees exactly where the blitz is coming from with Ron Rivera. Hits a slant to Calvin Ridley. His slants to Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley are as pretty a timed play as any in football. And then he had 3 beautiful throws in this game downfield, 1 to Julio Jones and 2 to Ridley, where the pressure is coming on him. He waits to the last second. He throws that high arcing pass, and it gets down beautifully into his receiver's hands. And that was one of many reasons. They dominated in every phase, but he was awesome, and he's killed Ron Rivera's Panthers every time he plays them.
I mean, anybody that's watched this Falcons team, and it's been a tough season on balance, knows that Matt Ryan's never been the problem. What I'm just trying to figure out still now is, for 8 games or whatever, arguably the worst defense in the league, complete lack of discipline, blown assignments, just getting destroyed week after week. And now against the last 2 weeks, as you said, against 2 playoff-level teams, they've allowed 4 field goals and no touchdowns.
They're looking pretty younger, aren't they?
They're looking younger as hell.
Raheem Morris gets
it's the staffing tweak, apparently.
I mean, some of that went, apparently took place before the bye even, but the stats are just rare. They had 4 turnovers forced in the first 9 games of the season. They had 4 today. They had 7 sacks in the first 8 games of the
Disney
season.
Movie.
They have 11 in the last 2 weeks. Desmond Trufant returned today and played really well. I don't think this is a playoff level team. I think this,
Oh, yeah, you do.
the Panthers. No, the Panthers.
Oh.
Of course the Falcons are. They're running through this NFC South. They have 5 straight games
Here
in
we
the division,
go.
and they're going to win all 5.
What's their record?
They're 3-7, so they're in trouble.
You got to win out and get some help.
Their
A lot of help.
defense is I was thinking about this, though,
Like
watching.
the East Coast falling into the sea. That would help.
Like, defense is – there's something strange in the alchemy. A lot of it's about energy, right? And you could just watch the Falcons the last 2 weeks, and they have played with incredible energy and athleticism and the speed that you think of when they put this team together.
But you could tell that performance last week against the Saints, the energy was so off the charts, and they were having so much fun that it did seem to be the type of game that would either be our Super Bowl and then they go back to normal, or the start of maybe a big change. The only problem here, Greg, the only reason why it seems kind of pointless to really dig into the Falcons. When you lose 7 out of 8 to start the season, it's already too late.
Well, yeah, it is. But I want to watch them. At least they'll be more watchable.
If I'm a Falcons fan, I'm going, okay, Raheem Morris has been a defensive coach his whole career, made his name that way, and you had him stuck coaching wide receivers for 8 games. Now he fixed your defense. Isn't that on the head coach for not having the coaches in the right spot?
That's a strange assignment. Eric Mangini did something like that too. But
yeah, it's Ulbrich on early downs, Raheem Morris on third downs. It's a lot. And, yeah, I don't think Dan Quinn's going to save his job almost no matter what happens. But what this did was it pointed out that the Panthers, to me, are not a playoff team in a deep NFC. Because what do they have that's special? This is not a special Ron Rivera defense. And I think that goes back to whether they keep Rivera or not. It's just an okay Ron Rivera defense. It's fine.
Is Kyle Allen morphing into Trevor Siemian before our eyes?
Kyle Allen had 4 interceptions today, and they were almost all just awful.
Is it
like really tough?
Twitter was
one of them
dragging that.
Yeah, on
poor
one of
gentleman.
them, Trufant made. If you watch the replay, made an incredible play that I give him a little credit. But the other 3 were just terrible. And the rest of the game, he kind of moved the ball. Allen did and made some nice plays, but the interceptions were brutal.
Christian McCaffrey 9 yards away from 200 on the day. But I'm assuming a lot of that came because it's 11-121 through the air. Screen pass action when the team is down and out.
It was a lot of in the catch-up mode. But no, even at halftime when the game, he just gets these quiet 12-yard catches and 10-yard runs, but you can't make an offense out of that. You can't make an MVP out of that.
We talked about it downstairs, Greg and I did, that the problem with what makes it almost impossible to win MVP as running back is you can't really control the game. You can't. What a quarterback, it's beyond. You talk about the narrative and Mark all the time with that, but it's also like the quarterback's in control of the game in a way the running back never can be, unless it's Adrian Peterson, 2012 or whatever, like those special seasons.
He's got to have 29 touches and 3 touchdowns, and then they win the game by.
I mean, he's got a chance to break the all-time record for yards in a season, which is a pretty wild record. Yards from scrimmage. I think he's a little behind pace, but
that's a rough turning point for the Panthers. It's over.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Young Wei Koo gets it done again.
I thought it was over him.
And Winston throws it right to the Saints. Coming back, Marcus Williams, the 30, the 20, the 10, the 5. Touchdown, Marcus Williams. They're not going to come a lot easier than that, Deuce. Jameis Winston drops back to throw, sails it about 10 yards over the head of Mike Evans, and Marcus Williams brings it back for a score. Marcus Williams with his 4th interception of the season.
You got to love the dependability of Jameis Winston. Zach Strife, Deuce McAllister, Saints Radio Network. Marcus Williams removed any semblance of drama from the proceedings on Sunday in Tampa, intercepting Jameis Winston 55 yards to the house. Clinching score, Saints 34-17 win over the Bucs. Wes, Drew Brees threw 3 touchdowns in this game. The Saints, the game maybe got a little closer than they wanted, but this on balance was a nice bounce back after last week's meltdown.
Yeah, I think we can look back at that game against the Falcons, who are now the best team in the NFC South, according to Greg Rosenthal, and say that was just a speed bump, that they came right back. And we've said that, the first half of last year, Drew Brees was the MVP. Starting with Thanksgiving of last year, Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas are the MVPs of this offense. Kamara comes back, and he's the focal point again, whereas last week in his first game back from injury, he was almost an afterthought. He makes this offense go, and he was a huge difference early in the game. His numbers don't look spectacular, but he was the one doing the work early. Michael Thomas cannot be stopped. He was incredible. And Jared Cook had another big play. His stat line doesn't look great, but I think Jared Cook is coming on as that third option for them. And, Drew Brees, a few more sideline creepers. The arm strength just isn't there, but he does enough even without the arm strength that this team can still be a Super Bowl contender.
Can you get through the NFC playoffs with Drew Brees at this point? I wonder that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I just wonder that.
I'm not. I want to see more, first of all, just because he's barely played this year. I mean, this is, 4 games? I want to see their offense with him more. As long as they're functional. I mean, it's not like their passing game has been poor. Last week was a strange game with a lot of penalties and every aspect of their team struggling. I think the level of concern, at least for me, for Drew Brees is not that high. I don't think he's a detriment to their team. Come on.
No, I agree with that. I think, but he's just not. I don't know. If they're playing against a Russell Wilson, do I trust Drew Brees at this point to keep up with Russell Wilson? I don't know about that.
You don't think he's a guy who can keep up in a shootout? I think in his building, maybe. I guess it depends on
how many bubble screens and I don't know.
I think
slants can you run?
This is about as deep a race for the buys in a conference that I can remember.
Break it down, Greg.
Well, at this point you have the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Saints, the Vikings, and the Packers, and all of them have 8 wins, right? Yeah, I mean, Vikings, I guess, have 3 losses of that group, but that's a pretty deep group of teams that all have a chance for the 1 seed. Or, you fall to 5, that's a big difference. For the Saints, they have a huge advantage over the rest of that group because you can give them the NFC South right now. They're 3 games up. I don't think you're going to lose that.
I know it's redundant, and so I'll keep it quick, but the Jameis Winston experience, I feel like he legit cost them 5 games a season with his mistakes alone. We're killing Kyle Allen for throwing 4 picks, as we should, but this happens over and over. How many 4 interception days did he have? He leads the league in these pick sixes. I mean, this is killing you.
He's got 18 interceptions this year, the most through 10 games in a season since Jay Cutler a decade ago. On the other hand, you watch this game, he was hit 12 times by the Saints defense. The Buccaneers had their fewest rushing attempts in the 44-year franchise history.
6 for 13 by their running backs.
Wow.
They ran the ball only 8 times today total. And Jameis had some plays where the offensive line blocked fine. He had plenty of time, and he just threw worm burners. I mean, on the other hand, the interceptions, some of them were fluky. So, but I think that's what interceptions are. When you throw enough of them, you're going to have every different kind imaginable.
The Winston era's come to an end, I think, naturally. They didn't give him the extension. They let him play on the 5th-year option, and it's just run its natural course.
And the Bucs make so much sense as one of the teams that will get one of these veteran quarterbacks. That just seems like it seems with Bruce Arians there, he's going to want his Carson Palmer-esque veteran that he could bring in. I just see them as being a natural team rather than going with a rookie. It could happen, obviously.
I'm still just scratching my head about them giving their GM, who drafted Winston, an extension before this season started.
Well, Bruce Arians took the job because of Jameis Winston. He thought that this guy was a franchise quarterback.
And the NFC South, we'll see. Drew Brees will probably come back, although you never know at this point. He's over 40. Matt Ryan's not going anywhere at Atlanta, but are the Panthers sure that we're still going to just, as speculation goes, let Cam Newton walk? Is Kyle Allen the guy you're going to trust? Or are they another team that will take one of these veteran quarterbacks that are going to be floating around? It could be a very different-looking division with some familiar faces.
I'm not comfortable with the way we left the Drew Brees conversation. Greg, I don't think you guys are going to watch this and say, oh, he's a problem. He's an issue. This was an awful game for him. I'm just saying I don't trust where his arm is right now.
I don't think it's off this game either. It's
right.
The
you
overall,
have a general
you've been saying
creeping
stuff
sense
like
of dread around Brees. Not as being washed up, but maybe not being a true difference maker like he used to be.
I wouldn't say dread. It's just more that you can tell when you used to watch something special, which the Saints offense reliably was, and now I just don't see it as special. I see it as more limited.
All right.
Michael Thomas,
he's special.
Let's just mention it. He's up to 96 catches. We're a week and a half away from Thanksgiving. He has 96 catches for 1,100 and almost 50 yards right now. I mean, his numbers are going to be – he's on pace, by the way.
He seems like he gets better every week.
It's outrageous. And every team facing them knows that Michael Thomas is basically their only receiver.
What's the record, 143?
No, it's less than that, isn't it?
143.
He's
Well,
he's on pace.
142. Let's just stay right there.
He's on pace to shatter.
I'm just
right
not
now.
sure that's why those events occurred. That's all I'll say. But
That feels like a perfect spot to land. Let's move on. Oh, before we move on, breaking news. We have a trade. We have a trade in our picks draft. Mark Sessler sends Jets Redskins to the old Zeuser in exchange for this game you're about to get a highlight from. So a little bottom of the draft, 6th rounder goes back, 7th rounder, and maybe like a punter in return, something like that. Let's hit it.
Here's your 3rd down from the 3-yard line. Carr's going to throw it. Steps up. Can't find anybody open. He's going to run with it. Stay on his feet. He's got open. Dive in zone. Touchdown Raiders. What a move by Derek Carr. His 2nd rushing touchdown ever. Oh, my. He went airborne. Everybody in the Raider front office holding their breath, man, when your quarterback goes up in the air like that. We need that dude.
Then Derek showed great awareness. You don't normally see this out of him taking off like that, but he wanted that touchdown so bad that he decided to go up on the 1 with nobody under him.
I got a good man. He did the helicopter, baby.
That's Brent Musburger, of course. I just looked it up. 80 years old. He turned 80 in May. That dude is having fun. He moved to the desert, and he's having some fun. Okay?
As he should.
I mean, 80-year-olds, they like the desert. They like going out there. They like going to Florida. They like going to Palm Springs.
Florida, not a desert. Just throwing that out there. But
I'm saying different places they like to go.
Okay.
Florida, the desert.
It's very moist there.
Feels like some generalizing.
Derek Carr, you heard it, rushed for a touchdown, threw for another, just enough production for the Raiders to get by the still winless Bungles, 17-10. Mark, the Raiders moved to 6-4 and are a Chiefs loss away on Monday night from first place in the AFC West. Hubba hubba.
Well, you looked over after we made this trade a number of times and asked, what's going on with that Raiders-Bengals game over there? It doesn't look too intriguing, too interesting, not exactly a barn burner. And you're right, it wasn't. But if you're the Oakland Raiders and you're trying to recreate everything and you've got a really young team, you're going to have to win a couple games like this. And the Bengals played, I thought, desperate football. It was one of the first games I thought where they were refusing to go away. They kept hanging around. And a Josh Jackson fumble and a Derek Carr interception helped them to do that. But the difference in this one, I thought, was, and it shouldn't be a surprise with Cincinnati's rather hideous offensive line, Max Crosby, 4 sacks.
What?
Whoa.
5 on the day for the Raiders. And that's been, over the past 2 games, a consistent thing for them, and that's good. And they really also, down the stretch, it was Darren Waller, it's Hunter Renfrow, it's Tyrell Williams, and 2 of those guys are rookies. They have the most productive rookie class in the NFL in terms of receiving yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, and it shows up every week. And so there you go.
Mike Mayock did,
Great job.
10 years for NFL Network, and everyone was like, oh, it's a splashy hire, but
it's easy on TV.
Yeah, it's different now that you're going to be responsible for these players. It could not have gone any better. It really could not have gone better.
I'd say that some teams should say, grab Chris Wessling as a GM, because there's a high parallel
Or even
there.
better, take Daniel Jeremiah off our hands. And
They've tried. The Bucs tried before they gave that
maybe
job
it's
to
time,
Jason Light.
Maybe it's time for a new challenge for
Don't
Daniel
hire
Jeremiah.
Chris Wessling. Just offer him a lot of money.
Leverage that, baby.
Yeah, I mean,
as Musburger says, baby, leverage it.
It's weird because Crosby is clearly better as a rookie, as a 4th-round pick, than Cleveland Ferrell is, the number 4 overall pick. Ferrell's really struggled.
What, 2.5 sacks last week?
Until last week, had a better game. But it was really telling. Paul Gunther, their coordinator, and this was a month ago. This was during the London game, more than a month ago. They asked him, how are you holding up? Not a lot of talent on this defense. And he said, yeah, we don't have any Pro Bowlers right now, but we've got a future one, and that's Max Crosby. And it's pretty interesting that 5 games into Crosby's career, he's saying that's the guy we're building around, a 4th-round demon who just shows up every game.
Are we to the point now? I see Derek Carr went 25 of 29. No more caveats, no more reservations. We just all believe that Derek Carr is, from now on, they're in good hands at quarterback.
He's efficient in this offense, but I wouldn't go that far.
Is he kind of like what Jared Goff was before this season? Like a decent to good quarterback in a great offense for him?
I think that's fair, Doug.
Yeah, I think I'm with Greg, though, where I'm not ready to I want to still see more, but he opened 11 of 11. At one point, he was 14 for 14 after they had scored another touchdown. He ran one in, and he's not making killer mistakes, and I think he's healthy. He has been through a lot on the injury front. He had a back injury, which we never know what that feels like with gigantic people chasing you and tackling to the ground. Probably not great.
Little concerning, though. This team, the Raiders.
Good analysis.
We were excited to watch them because they've been so efficient on offense. 5.1 yards per play last week was one of their worst offensive games against the Chargers, and then 17 points against the Bengals. They've come back to earth a little bit on offense.
Yeah, that's true. Dr. Chow is going to be nervous, Mark, after that breakdown you just had.
Coming for his corner?
Coming for the corner. The Chow corner.
Like I said, I call him all the time. He does not necessarily answer the phone.
He's on the phone with Evan Silva.
I know. Well, so that he's got that old rotary phone that's just got a busy signal.
Real quick, was Ryan Finley as bad as his numbers?
I get, and it's like I'm the last person that should comment on like benching Andy Dalton at this point, but I don't understand what the overall mission is. I just don't get what the mission is because
neither does anybody in Cincinnati.
There's just not much that you're going to get from this type of player that's any different than a reduced version of Andy Dalton to some degree.
We have our Road to Greatness segment. We should have a Mission to Nowhere segment with just the Bengals every week.
I don't know if it's a help to their head coach either. So.
All right, let's close it out with the other side of that trade. Blockbuster in the newsroom.
Darnold in the shotgun belt to his right. Griffin tight right. 3 receivers left. Darnold back to throw. Looks left. Has time. Fires one down the left sideline for Crowder. He's got it. Front left pylon. And he's in. That's a Jet touchdown. Jamison Crowder comes back to his old team. And for the third straight game, Crowder's able to score. Sam Darnold with his 4th touchdown pass of the game. That's a career high. And the Jets extend their lead.
Bob Wischusen with the call for the Jets radio network. Sam Darnold slaying ghosts in D.C. 4 touchdown passes, including that pretty 29-yarder. Some really nice touch on some of his passes you guys will see, or you won't, depending on if you watch this game, on the old Game Pass. Jets 34-17 win over the moribund Washington Redskins. 2 wins in a row for the Jets, who blew out an opponent 3 days after Christopher Johnson publicly announced that Adam Gase wouldn't be one and done in Gotham. And this is what Gase has. Like I said on Thursday, I didn't put too much stock into Johnson's statement that Gase will definitely be back in 2020 because what if they completely go in the tank for the rest of the season? It's going to be a much harder call and a much harder sell to your fan base in that situation. But, after a game like today, you start to think, okay, maybe they can go into the offseason with a little bit of hope and excitement because if you recall last December, Darnold's hot finish is part of the reason why there was a lot of expectations around the Jets entering this season. And for the second straight week, he's really showing some growth and progress. And he had one more turnover today, which was a bad interception. So it wasn't a perfect game, but you take that out of the mix, and he really has kind of recovered from that really 1-2 punch. Well, it was 1-2-3 punch. You count the mono, and then the game against the Patriots, the ghost game, and then the Jags game back-to-back where he just was having trouble protecting the ball, wasn't getting any help from his offensive line. But he seems to be playing with some confidence, and that's really good to see. So Darnold was very good in this game, and the Redskins are very, very bad. This is a very bad Washington team.
How did Haskins look?
Haskins, I'll give him credit for this. He had one very pretty deep ball that showed his arm strength.
He's got all the arm you want.
Yeah, it went for a completion, but it got called back on a holding penalty. In the fourth quarter, they scored 2 touchdowns in garbage time. It was up to 34-3 before they scored, but they hadn't scored a touchdown in 16 quarters. 16 quarters before those 2 garbage time scores. In general, and this is never a popular sentiment in this room, and I understand that he's not maybe a guy that you ever want to root for, but Greg Williams has done a really good job with his Jets defense. They're one of the best teams in the league against the run, and they have such a talent deficiency in their secondary, and yet on a weekly basis they are competitive on defense. and they, I think, confused Haskins quite a bit in this game. So Haskins, I mean, that's good to hear. I don't care. Who cares about the Patriots? I'm sick of the Patriots winning and upsetting me. Just give me my favorite team winning, and I'm A-okay on a Sunday.
They're on a winning streak right now.
Are you okay, Greg?
I'm all right.
Give a hack. Give a good hack.
I think you can see why I traded this game away, and it even happened minutes into the game, because this is your time to shine, Dan, and I'm glad that they went your way today. Darnold threw an awesome pass right out of the gate to Daniel Brown, their tight end. Two things I found quizzical. One, when they ran the ball to Le'Veon Bell on 3rd and 11. Why? There's just no reason to do that in the situation they were in. Secondly, though,
they were up 34-3 in the fourth quarter.
Secondly, though, explain to me, unless I saw this wrong, why is Dowell Loggins carrying around the challenge flags for Adam Gase?
Been doing that all year.
Yeah, he does.
I know,
that.
but explain to me what it's the.
You're gonna have to
upside
ask Gase. He said he likes to have someone else holding it. That's all I can. So he could
that
say.
That to me feels like
it.
sort of like part of the little quirks to Adam Gase that because
he
Dowell Loggins
did it in Miami too. The whole time he was a Dolphins coach, he carried his own.
It's like quasi.
He knows more than I do, but it just seems like a middleman, unnecessary middleman.
Do you want to go back to that 3rd and 11 draw in the second?
No,
no, I do not. But it was
by the fourth quarter.
It was a total hot mess. They don't need to do that.
No, I mean, that was a bad call.
Quarter? I thought it was earlier than that.
It was in the second quarter. It was in the
second quarter.
Oh, okay.
The game was not over at that point.
But my point is, it's been such a – before entering last week, the Jets were averaging 12 points a game on offense. There is some real growth. You throw out – that was a bad play call. But there's been some real growth the last 2 weeks, and that's what you need. You need to see positivity on that offense.
But and on the other side, this was a moment that the Washington Post wrote about and thought it was the lowest moment that the Redskins have hit yet. Thomas Boswell, who's kind of
that's saying something.
And I get it though. It's the stadium's half empty. There was a chant at one time to sell the team, but it just sort of died out because there's no one there.
Right.
There were tickets available in the lower bowl, which our friend Will Blackman tweeted out before the game for like $10-15 in 12th row NFL game, and no one's going to it. And this is one of the franchises in the NFL. This is a team that won 3 Super Bowls, that had a tradition that goes back, and it's been ugly a lot of the time too if you go way back with it, but they have a long tradition. And they're dying in Washington. I mean, that city has given up on them. They're behind. They're the 4th or 5th team in Washington right now.
Which is crazy to think about. Who some of the other teams are there, but who that the Redskins. When you talk about the fan bases that've been through a lot of pain, Dan, like the Redskins need to be. Their fans have been through so much. It's insane. Lions, Redskins, Browns, Jets. The Redskins are right there.
It's gotten a lot worse, I feel like, in the last several years, where it's the hope is just starting to just dissipate for them.
Right now, I feel like they are at their lowest point. There was a little story, within that column, he mentions how the kick returner at one point turns around, he tries to get the fans to get up, and they just ignore him. And then eventually, like 3 people stand up, and that's where they're at.
It's been a long time.
Wild.
I mean, it's been since RG3's knee injury. It's just been – well, they got to the playoffs once with Cousins.
They've made the playoffs a couple times this century, but I would put them – and I think the win-loss record would be there among the worst teams certainly since the turn of the century.
With a low hope quotient because of who's running the team right now.
Right, and you haven't seen enough. Haskins has only started 3 games, but it's been pretty shaky. Wes, you're a historian. You'll want to know this. Jamal Adams became only the 2nd defensive back in the past 10 years to record 3 sacks in a game.
Wow, I saw that he has the same number of sacks as Aaron Donald this year.
I mean, he's got 6. He can break the all-time records for defensive backs.
Is he on your all-pro list?
8.
Jamal?
He was not, but that was before.
Before they dangled him in trade talks and became Superman? Yeah.
Before last week when he stuffed the box score, and then today having 3
exploded.
All right, that's that for that game. All right, moving on. It's time for the 2-minute drill presented by Oikos 000. Gentlemen, we like to say on the show, show me something. Who showed us something in Week 11, Mark?
Someone I didn't expect, Matt Judon of the Baltimore Ravens. And we
Judon.
We spent all our time talking about Lamar Jackson in the offense for good reason. But today when they wiped out the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson, it was Baltimore's pass rush, 6 sacks, 2 of them by Judon, who forced a fumble on Houston's first possession, which changed that game, I thought, right away and put the Texans into a dark hole.
Who showed you something, Chris Wessling?
Kirk Cousins. Perception was that he can't lead his team to victory when the chips are down. And that perception can turn into reality when your teammates start doubting you, when you begin to doubt yourself. Nobody's doubting Kirk Cousins anymore. This is the first week. Teams were 0-99 over the last 5 years with a 20-point deficit at halftime. Kirk Cousins led this with 4 second-half touchdown drives, not just scoring drives. And this comes on the heels of going into Dallas on national TV in prime time. He is running out of dragons to slay.
I'll throw out somebody, another quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. He showed me something. He's coming off a game on Monday night where he didn't make the plays maybe you needed him to win that game and stay undefeated. Well, what does he do against the Cardinals? With their backs against the wall, he leads a big comeback. He throws for over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and again looks like the franchise quarterback that can complement a great defense with playmakers that could be a Super Bowl team. Jimmy G stepped up in a big spot.
Oh, yeah.
I am looking at a receiver in Dallas, Michael Gallup, who you would think without Amari Cooper on the field, we don't have our number one receiver. Today, at least, Michael Gallup is your number one.
Wake up. We got a number one.
What more do you need to do than make some of the deep grabs that Gallup did? He can make the sideline route. He can do the slant. He can do it all. He's physical. I mean, he looks like a one receiver. He passes the eye test. He did it all.
You loved that Olivia Newton-John single back in the day, Mark, I know. Let's get physical.
I actually did. Was in first grade at the time.
You really did. And that is 2-Minute Drill presented by Oikos 000.
And now Goff wants to go no huddle. From the 5, it's 1st and goal. With Malcolm Brown behind him, they give to Brown straight ahead. He charges in for 6. Touchdown, LA! 3:31 to go in regulation, and the Rams take it back to a 2-score lead.
Even our old buddy, J.B. Long, seems just relieved that Malcolm Brown found that end zone to put some distance between the Rams and the lowly Chicago Bears. Yes, a 17-7 win for the home team at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. A game that Mark Sessler will be remembered. Well, I don't know if it will be remembered. It's a W for the Rams, and they move on. And for the Bears, that what people will be talking about with 3 minutes to play, Chase Daniel entered, Mitch Trubisky exited officially. It was listed as a hip injury, but that's only officially. Is this the beginning of the end? That's the talking point for a lot of people coming out of Sunday Night Football.
And the beginning of the end for Mitch Trubisky has been beginning for a while. I don't think that something suddenly turned tonight because it wasn't like a low-point Mitch Trubisky game in general. The offense is plagued with issues. They have not had a running game around him for weeks and weeks. There are drops happening by wide receivers. The environment around Mitch Trubisky is not optimal. And if for some reason we found out the injury is not nearly as serious as or at all, the timing of the switch is something that just creates a week's worth of questions for your team. When you didn't insert a first-round quarterback that's been on the bench, you inserted Chase Daniel, who is not going to hold anyone off. So it just creates issues for the Bears. We'll see.
Who gets benched with 3 minutes to play?
That's what I mean. The timing is. The benching would have happened earlier if the Rams had gotten off the field.
Right. I think the context is Mitch Trubisky, and look, I don't doubt that he's playing through an injury. They said he was on some level, but the reality is in his previous 5 drives, 3 and out, 1 first down, then a punt, 3 and out. When they punted the ball, they had been going back and forth punt fest. It's a 3-point game. There's 8 minutes to go. You assume that's when he makes the decision to make a change. So that's thinking, I can go win this game. Our season is hanging on a thread, and I trust Chase Daniel more right now than Mitchell Trubisky. Now, the Bears' defense, it should be mentioned, does what they've done in some big spots this year, which is give up a touchdown drive at the absolute worst time. You can't kill them because they force punts, they forced 2 takeaways in the first quarter, and the offense didn't do anything. But it's kind of a script we've seen for a while, and I've been waiting to see Chase Daniel for a while because I think they're just saying this is not our guy, Trubisky.
What a deflating season for that organization. I think the most deflating season of any organization. To go from Super Bowl contender, you give up the farm for Khalil Mack, you have the coach of the year, a finalist for executive of the year, and now 10 months later, you might have to start all over at quarterback. You might have to start all over at coach. You might have to start all over at GM. And the Raiders own your first-round pick.
Ooh, forgot about that.
Which makes them that's a good point, Wes. And I talked about earlier about which teams in the NFC South perhaps would be teams you look at that might get one of these many veteran quarterbacks on the market. The Bears, especially without a first-round pick, they might be looking for a stopgap, an Andy Dalton type player, or Andy Dalton himself, who knows. But it's now becoming increasingly clear, and we're doing this obviously Sunday night, 20 minutes after the guy went to the bench, so we'll get a clearer picture of what's going on around that team. But just from where we are now, it certainly seems like this is the first real tangible step towards a separation of Trubisky and the Bears.
And give the Rams defense credit. They did what you need to do against a bad offense, and that's just totally hold them down, because the Rams offense wasn't much better for most of the game, but Goff and Gurley made enough plays in this game. Goff had about 2 or 3 nice throws. He only had 6 total in the first half, and you got the win. If you're a Rams, you don't care how you're getting wins these days. They are in the mix, and I don't totally rule them out because their defense is good. And if you were a total homer, you could say the O-line made some big steps today. They blocked well for Todd Gurley, and they protected well for Jared Goff. You just haven't seen any games like that out of the Rams, but that's like picking the most positive things in a pretty rough
I just say you don't rest for long. I mean, we were looking at the schedule coming into this recap here. Ravens next week, if you're the Rams, at the Cardinals, which is this is not last year and it's not week 3. This is not an easy team to knock out. Seahawks, Cowboys, 49ers, and the Cardinals again. If the Rams are even alive for a playoff berth in week 17, the negative things that I feel about them right now will have washed away because they will have earned that big time.
Go ahead, Wes.
Their defense has not allowed more than 10 points in a game in over 5 weeks.
It's a really good defense.
And they have one of their best run defenses in the history of their franchise.
It's the best Wade Phillips defense in the 3 years. It's ironic because it's coming with obviously the worst offense, but it's crazy to look at the Bears box score, though. They ran 74 plays. Not one of them went for 20 yards. That's tough to do in the NFL. Wow. 74 plays. They held the ball quite a bit, and this was a typical Trubisky game in that, it wasn't his worst game, but he was indecisive. There were throws in the first half where he's always a beat late. You know, he has guys open, and he's just kind of a beat late. He has to see it, and then the play isn't there anymore, and Jalen Ramsey especially closed on
one quick thing before we fly off on the Rams defense. I get they are playing well. That 10-point thing happened against the Bengals, Steelers, and Bears. It's just you couldn't line up a better option for that to happen.
Todd Gurley nearly gets his first 100-yard game. My big takeaway, if you're looking for positives beyond the defense for the Rams, is a killer. I mean, a team that really needed a big play to get excited about. They get the 51-yard touchdown from Goff to Reynolds in the fourth quarter, wiped out by a clumsy illegal procedure with Whitworth being uncovered at the left tackle position. And then how do they respond? Instead of going into a shell, they go 6 plays and 54 yards down the field to get that touchdown back, 17-7. So they are far off. It was around this time last year that they won 55-53 or whatever against the Chiefs. It's crazy how far we've come since then, and they have a lot of work to do. But they're 6-4. That's in the NFC. That's not a great place to be, especially with that schedule. But they have a chance to save this thing still.
Remember, I said earlier in the podcast, Cardinals, 49ers. That's a great matchup anytime you have it. To the schedule makers, we don't need another Bears-Rams Sunday night special next year. You know, let's not
we warned you.
Let's not make this a tradition. Please.
You were warned. All right. There you go. That's the Sunday night recap. 2 quick things. Number 1, the reason you're hearing this podcast right now is that we put it out there, not a challenge, a demand. 10,000 followers on our Instagram account, the ATN Podcast. We hit it. We hit it this weekend. Eric, I know you were very excited to see that, as were we. As always, the fans of this podcast stepped up, and we love you.
We did not buy followers like some people do on Instagram.
Oh, hell no.
Just throwing that out there because,
they don't have the money.
Yeah,
it's still a thing.
Or the budget.
They're legit real people, most of them from
Who
Europe.
are you talking about?
I don't know. Plenty of people do that, don't they, Erica? I don't know how to
I think like some people with thousands and thousands.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they're bots. Yeah.
And as a gift to all these listeners and the people that love the video content that we put up often on the Instagram handle, let's take it back with a little instant replay of Wes in the Hot Boy jeans. Let's take a look at this. This is for video fans of the show. Roll it.
Ooh la la.
Why do I feel like I'm in an E.L. Doctorow novel? Ragtime, baby.
A good work by Ryan Bartlett, Erica Tamposi, and the whole team back there. Wes, you are quite a tease.
Thank you. That's quite a compliment.
We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll recap the Monday Night Football game that closes out Week 11, and then we start looking forward to another week of NFL action. So thank you, everybody, for listening and watching.
Oh, yeah, and if you want to see that slow-mo of Wes lifting his leg over and over again to our audio listeners of
I know, I kind of feel bad for our audio listeners.
If you didn't